Alright, I think we are a good now. So let's just go ahead and make sure, for you folks just kind of joining in, welcome. Let's see here, just tell me. Definitely not what I wanted. Okay. So we should be rolling in. Let's just kind of make sure. We're going to be going over our two tropical systems today, mainly focusing on Marco and obviously focusing over our other tropical cyclone. So, alright. So, for you folks just joining in, we're talking about tropical storm, Hurricane Marco out here in the Gulf of Mexico. For Tropical Storm Laura, sustained winds are near 50 knots or roughly about 60 miles per hour. And this is going to be a threat here over the next several days, off towards mostly confined so far towards the Greater Antilles, then Cuba, obviously. And then this will ultimately be a threat going forward into portions of the Gulf of Mexico and the Gulf Coast states of the United States here. Now, this is moving west-northwest at about 21 miles per hour and a pressure of roughly about 1,000 millibars. And this will kind of continue on more of a west-northwest trajectory throughout the next while, and this will be moving gradually. This isn't expected to race off at 25-30 miles an hour, but it will be in the Gulf of Mexico within another day or so. And this is when more robust intensification could start to occur, and this is when we'll really have to monitor for the development of significant rapid intensification. Now, on the visible satellite shot, this comes from tropicaltidbits.com, and we notice that there's a couple of very interesting things that are ongoing right now regarding both systems. First of all, we have our tropical storm located about right here. Now, this is positioned roughly about from the Dominican Republic and Haiti area, which is right here, and Cuba, which is right here. This is the far eastern tip of Cuba right here. And our center of circulation is kind of riding the coast almost. Our center is located roughly in through about here, and it's moving almost west-northwest or a little bit parallel to the coastline. This will eventually come onshore here. It's unlikely to just skate, kind of skate far enough south to avoid any land. So this will likely come inland just a little bit. Now, how far inland this actually gets before kind of riding up the coastline is very important because models differ on this idea in solution. But furthermore, we have very deep convection over most of Jamaica right now, all the way through Haiti and portions of the Dominican Republic. And this will be eventually kind of scooting off towards the west and northwest. All of this convection will eventually move over Cuba, and this will bring heavy rainfall to portions of Cuba over the next couple of days, really. And this is going to be one of the main concerns, and I'm most concerned about the flooding potential initially from this tropical cyclone. It's not going to be a hurricane, obviously, right now, but we do have these strong tropical storm force winds of about 55 to 60 miles per hour, with a mesovortice that was potentially sampled by the aircraft reconnaissance from earlier in this vicinity that did happen to measure near hurricane force flight level winds in this vicinity moving west-northwest. Now, this could have been a mesovortice, and the Hurricane Center notes that in their 5 o'clock discussion. So that is one thing that is something to take note of, that we might have embedded little vortices that induce stronger winds, but not necessarily representative of the larger wind field associated with Laura. So that is something to kind of take note of, and it is going to be interesting to see how this kind of pans out. We'll just run the satellite loop once again. it is going to be something that is going to have to be worth watching, because the amount of land interaction is going to determine how strong it gets in the Gulf of Mexico. And if it does happen to slide a little bit south, it could be stronger than what the Hurricane Center forecast it to be. And they do explicitly note in their 5 o'clock discussion that this could be a major hurricane right before landfall. And unfortunately, that is looking a little bit more likely today than it was the last several days. And that is in part due to the fact that this is now going to be dealing with less of the land interaction and more open water out in time. So this will be something that we're going to have to monitor very closely. Now, the intensity guidance with Laura is it's up and down. Obviously, you've got the one outlier HWRF run right now that is, category 4 doom and gloom, and who knows if that's going to verify or whatever. If this doesn't happen to verify, what we're likely to see, which is more than likely, category 4. I'm reading the comments, but category 4, the problem with that is we are in a very favorable environment down in this area, which I'll show here in a moment. But the other problem is, what interaction does Laura have with Marco, and what interaction it has with land here. And that's the main concern, is we don't know how much land interaction we're still going to have, because there's constant adjustments. And on the other, value, you've got some of the models like the AEMI model. It's hard to say that. The AEMI, which is kind of only suggesting a little bit of a decrease and then kind of dropping it off. Now, that's very unlikely to occur. We're likely to deal with something stronger than a tropical storm over the next couple of days. And that's going to be very important to understand, is that right now, our limitations are only kind of suggesting category 1 into category 2. But given the fact of how favorable this environment downstream is in the Gulf of Mexico, it would not be completely surprising to see that this thing does intensify a little bit quicker than currently anticipated, and it will have to be watched down the road. Now, currently, we don't have any watches or warnings for the Gulf Coast states, although those will probably be coming with time. And then we also have tropical storm and tropical storm watches and warnings here, with tropical storm warnings for basically all of the remaining islands out through here. Basically, all of Cuba and most of Hispaniola and the Dominican Republic and Haiti under a tropical storm warning. Portions of the Turks and Caicos under a tropical storm warning. With the 5 o'clock advisory package, the tropical storm watch for portions of the Central Bahamas and Andrews Island was canceled because this is moving far enough to the south that this will not bring tropical storm impacts directly to those areas. The new wave, it does have a chance for development, and once I'm kind of finished with this, I'll take a look at it. Now, the Hurricane Center hasn't noted anything explicitly with this new wave, but the EPS ensembles are suggesting an uptick in activity somewhere out in this vicinity. And given that it's kind of coincided with the pass of a very favorable Madden Julian oscillation that's kind of just standing over Africa, the African standing wave, etc., you're going to have a lot of upward motion in this area. And while there was a wave out here that was trying to come off the coast of Africa and it just kind of failed to develop, that's mainly because now we're actually getting a suppressed Kelvin wave to kind of roll over. So that's kind of one of that reasons. But as far as that particular wave, there is a chance that, yes, it could be something to watch, and both the ensemble members of the EPS and all of the global models are starting to pick up on tropical cyclone genesis occurring with that. So, it's the peak of the season, and we would kind of expect this, but, we might not have, more than a few days break after Laura, if that. So, remains to be seen. But with Tropical Storm Laura, we do have tropical storm watches that are in effect for the Florida Keys. The watch that was up to coastal Miami-Dade County was actually dropped, so that's going to be reflected when I change this graphic here at the 8 o'clock intermittent advisory. The tropical storm watch remains in effect for portions of the Florida Keys all the way down to Key West. And that is in response to the fact that we are going to get strong winds on the northern side of it that are going to still be quite strong that will be passing through this area. So that's one of the reasons why we still have a tropical storm watch for Key West at this very moment. Now, going over the tracks of Laura, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. I'm actually going to take a drink of water real quick. All right, much better. So what's occurring is we have a very strong high pressure ridge off towards its west and north. And this is kind of the same factor that's responsible for pushing Marco up towards the north here. Now, this big ridge of high pressure is going to remain in place, and as Marco actually moves further towards the north, there is that possibility that this ridge actually extends over to portions of Florida. Now, what this is going to do is a couple of things. This is going to support Laura to move more westernly, and that is because this high pressure ridge, it's now building in over Florida, and storms can't turn into high pressure. Now, that's the CMCI. Is it possible for them to form into an alter megacane? No. It is possible for them to sort of merge, but first of all, we're not really exquisitely forecasting that for these two cyclones. And second of all, to form a alter megacane, not really. Now, there is kind of one exception, and that was like Superstorm Sandy, where you got some upper level energy over the basically over the continental United States that was moving due east, and you had Sandy, which was coming due north. These two ended up merging, and it created a extra tropical cyclone, which doesn't have any tropical or doesn't have much tropical characteristics. So the short answer to your question is no. Could any of the storms make sudden or unexpected turns? Yes, and we have seen that a couple of times with Laura and Marco. Is it possible that Laura will fizzle out over Cuba? No. And the reason why is because, and we go back to the visible satellite, the very vigorous circulation of Laura, basically in a scientific term, it's called conservation of angular momentum. And you can't necessarily get a cyclone that is well super developed. Now, I will say that, and kind of just going off on that for a minute, if this was a hurricane already, if this was a well-established hurricane and it was moving over that area, yes. But the fact that it does not have a well-established inner core is what is saving it and has saved it over Hispaniola and now Cuba. But conservation of angular momentum also plays a factor into this, and it basically states that this tropical cyclone should retain some of its energy because it has a vigorous circulation. And you know that, obviously, mass cannot be created nor destroyed, energy cannot be created or destroyed, etc. All of that kind of goes into this, and because this is a system that, yes, it has some mass, because these thunderstorms, they, have rain, and whatever, this necessarily can't be transposed into a storm that dissipates over Cuba, if that makes sense. If that doesn't, I can clarify what I mean. But this should not dissipate over the mountains of Cuba. And in fact, these mountains of Cuba are a lot less than what was over Hispaniola, for that matter. So it is very important to kind of keep that in mind, that this is not likely to significantly weaken much going over Cuba at all. And the convective activity is much further south, so I believe that the center is south. Yeah, and and that's kind of what we were talking about, is that this seems to be right now on the far southern edge of the envelope and even the guidance. And you know, the guidance seems to be, you know, trending ever so south, and that's very interesting. So is the center south of Cuba, and does that mean it moves more west? Yes, so the center, in kind of real quickly, the center forecasted by all the models yesterday was supposed to be somewhere in here. The center today is right about here, and we'll kind of roll that back so you can kind of see the coastline a little bit better here. Actually, this is there we go. That is the center of Cuba right there, or that's the landmass of Cuba, and our center is right about in here at this current time. That does mean that it goes further west, and we can kind of see that in the track guidance as of 18 Zulu time, or 2 o'clock, that this is now south, and thus it is shifting further off towards the west. So that is of a significant concern. Hey Michael, here in Puerto Rico, only impacts from Laura was some area of light rain and 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts. That's certainly good to hear, John. Certainly glad that, you know, it was nothing very significant. Obviously, you know, 40-mile-an-hour winds, you know, can be sometimes enough to blow down some trees. I'm going to take some water real quick. You know, it could be enough to blow down some trees, and that's certainly possible, but glad to hear that it wasn't anything that significant. Hope there wasn't any damage there or whatever, so that certainly seems like some good news. H. Worf says that there will be a major hurricane. Do you think it has a chance of happening? Yes, it certainly does have a chance to develop into a major hurricane, and the further west that this gets in the short term and the further south it is of Cuba, the higher chance of this becoming a major hurricane it has, and that is a little bit worrisome. Is Jamaica going to still have some impacts? Yes, and we can, once again, take a look at that. Jamaica right now is under some of that deeper convection right now. So yes, Jamaica is going to have some rain and potentially some wind impacts from Laura. Not significantly strong winds, but if you get under any of the thunderstorm complexes that develop, it can produce downburst winds upwards of 40, 50, 60 miles an hour, which is almost about the sustained wind right now of Laura. So, you know, because you're a little bit removed from the center doesn't mean you're going to necessarily not have impacts, if that makes sense. There seems to be a vigorous mesovortex that came ashore. Yeah, and, you know, that's almost what we saw with back in Puerto Rico, was a very vigorous mesovortex, basically a smaller scale mesovortice that came ashore and tried to be the dominant low-level center, but it just couldn't do it. And that's almost like what we saw in southern Puerto Rico yesterday. So that, you know, something that, you know, we have to kind of keep watching to see if that tries to reestablish its way. Any other disturbances? No. Well, we are watching an area coming off of Africa, but the Hurricane Center has not highlighted it yet for any chance of significant formation. So other than these two systems right now, it seems to be relatively quiet, which is obviously, you know, some good news there. No damage in my area, although some areas had most damage to the south part. Yeah, that mesovortex was very strong, and I did see something from the Weather Service office in Puerto Rico tweeting that there was either sustained or wind gusts up to near hurricane force at 75 miles per hour or 65 knots, which is quite impressive for a small little mesovortex. And, you know, thank God that did not have more time over water, because it could have became a very small circulation and quickly intensified and become the dominant circulation. So thank God that, you know, that small little mesovortex didn't have any more time over water, because it could have been bad if it didn't. But once again, you know, this is expected to kind of come into this area, and this is kind of one of the graphics that I made. Laura is, for the most part, right now sitting south in near Cuba, obviously, and this is closer to the United States. Do you think that West Central Florida is going to be affected by Laura? Well, to a certain extent, yes. And let's bring up the visible satellite. Well, not the visible, but the IR satellite. And this is actually from what's going on right now with Marco. Marco is actually out here, and it's producing showers and thunderstorms near Florida. Isaias, okay. Tropical storm Laura will move off towards the southwest of west central Florida, which is basically this area right through there. Now, what will end up happening is there will be some rain bands from time to time that will kind of circulate inwards. There is actually a marginal risk for severe weather tomorrow across South Florida for the isolated threat of tornadoes from the far outer rain bands of Laura as it begins to make its track north to Cuba. So there is the threat that tomorrow, tonight into tomorrow, will be the worst impact time frame for South and West Florida. But we're not expecting any significant impacts in terms of significant wind, that is sustained or anything like that. So West Central Florida, there will be some impacts, but they will be very limited in its scope and in its intensity. Isaias was definitely more damage, and I think a lot of it was the flooding rainfall. I think more than the wind, if I recall correctly. I'll be watching the tropical waves that come off of Africa. Yeah, and that's this is kind of time of the year, John. We have a lot of those situations where, we just get these tropical waves that just develop one after another, the African wave train, basically. And it's setting up shop right now, and I'll actually show that here in a couple of minutes when I talk about after Marco. But, it is interesting that these tropical waves kind of keep coming off one after another. So that will be interesting. But with Tropical Storm Laura, am I in Gulf Shores, Alabama in the clear? So Gulf Shores, Alabama in particular, not necessarily. Gulf Shore, will have some impacts from Marco, which I'll jump to here. So this is Hurricane Marco, which does have the possibility to bring some heavy rainfall to portions of Gulf Shore, Alabama, and along the Florida Panhandle. This whole entire region has a chance. Tropical storm warnings go over to near Pensacola, Florida for Hurricane Marco, just for a reference. How do you feel about your recent growth in your subscriber count? Honestly, I'm amazed because honestly, I did not think I'd be in the position where I was, that I would have a lot of people, watching what I have to say. And, I can't thank, each and every one of you enough for the support that you've given me, taking time out of your day to watch me. I'm not even, an actual meteorologist yet. So I'm certainly glad that each and every one of you are here. My opinion from Marco is that there could still be some strength, even significant strengthening possible, but I could be wrong. Well, the thing is that with significant intensification, and we'll kind of we'll switch gears now to look at that. Here's the visible satellite shot, if this will want to load. Maybe not. That's interesting. Hey, I watch you every day, brother. Good stuff. Thank you, Jeremy. That really means a lot. That really does. While we wait for this to load, the main problem with significant strengthening for Laura, or not for Laura, for Marco, is the fact that it's going to encounter some vertical wind shear. And it does not have a chance. We'll actually stop this here. Right now, this is going to deal with some vertical wind shear, and it's already starting to occur that there's some southwest to northeast shear that's basically being impinged on Marco, and it's actually blowing the thunderstorms off. It's blowing the thunderstorms off to the northeast of the center, and that might actually cause some vortex decoupling. So and that might actually allow some dry air into the storm. Now, currently there is more convective bursts that are occurring near the center, but it is possible that the center might be starting to get decoupled, and then actually the low-level center might continue to drift more this way. Let me remark that. The low-level center might actually turn this way, and the mid-level center might go more north. So that's just something to watch. The Canadian Navy are showing the Fujiwara effect happening. You know, it's a possibility, but it's becoming more unlikely because of the fact that Marco should be weaker and less of an influence to Laura. And if it doesn't have much of an influence, it's not going to be able to, you know, cause any significant influence in the atmosphere for Laura, if that makes sense. Do you think this hurricane season will remain strong after the peak in September into October or November, or it start slowing down into October? Well, naturally things start to slow down, but this is the year 2020. But in all seriousness, it should stay active for a pretty long time, and it should be one of those situations that we have activity right through October and potentially even in through the first week or so of November with that African standing wave and everything else. And that's going to be very important because, you know, this just keeps the hurricanes coming, you know, and, you know, that's the last thing we need right now. I started watching about 2 months ago. Great stuff, man. Well, thank you very much, Jonathan. That really means a lot. You know, I try to provide a lot of good information to everybody, and I certainly try to provide the scientific background from it and not just what you see with some others. I'm not going to name names, but, you know, some others that are, you know, doom and gloom and major hurricane this and major hurricane that. So, let's see. No, I noticed an upper level trough that is pulling Marco. Yeah, and there is an upper level trough feature. And we'll take a look at this here on the shear map real quick. There is the potential that this is going to help steer it a little bit further north. But again, this is the shear. And you notice that this is the upper level trough right here. That's the trough axis. And there's a lot of shear, about, you know, 30 knots or so. So that will be something we'll have to watch. But yeah, there is an upper level trough that is kind of pulling on Marco, and it's actually one of the main things that was enhancing its outflow earlier today. Does part of you, excluding the death and destruction, want a massive hurricane? If it was over the open Atlantic waters, you know, and if it was, you know, over the open Atlantic and was turning on out to sea, sure, you know. But obviously, I don't want anything in land areas at all. So, you know, like if we had a Lorenzo, like I believe it was last year that we had Hurricane Lorenzo that was a Category 5. Yeah, it was. You know, out there across the Eastern Atlantic, I mean, you know, it was fun to watch. Now, it impacted the Azores and some of the Cabo Verde Islands, but, you know, it was fun to watch. You know, and obviously, you know, this is kind of one of the things that I try to do. I try to track everything. And, you know, even if it's not going to be a threat, you know, I like to track it and, you know, bring everyone up to date and kind of, you know, learn my experience and help other people learn, you know, how to track these things as well. I keep wondering if Laura's count is going to end up moving, or do you think they have confidence in the path? Well, it's iffy, and I'll kind of jump back here. I'm going to take a sip of water real quick. All right. So there is the potential that the track forecast is becoming a little bit more solid. But there's also a high degree of spread between the HMON, which is the HMIN model here, and some of the other models like the Euro and everything else like that. That is a considerable spread over a couple hundred miles. So there is the possibility that this could trend further back towards the west or further back off towards the east, but gradually, if I had to bring my better bet on something, it's probably going to be somewhere in Louisiana or Texas, where I'm kind of thinking that this is going to have the highest impacts. From Tyler, yo dude, I started watching at 100 subs. Don't forget about me when you're big. Hey, I never forget about anybody, man. And, you know, I'm certainly glad that, you know, and thank you for kind of tuning in since 100 subs. That's actually crazy, man. What would it take to for Laura to move way more to the west than predicted? Well, It would basically take, all it really takes is actually to have the storm not impact Cuba and just keep moving west-south, or basically west or northwest here. And this would basically prohibit this from coming much over Cuba and would end up kind of coming out something like this. So it is the possibility. How do you think global warming will influence the next 10 years hurricane seasons? Well, it's kind of a little bit harder to say that. I'm not a climate expert. I do meteorology. I don't focus necessarily on the climate, but for a I'm not a meteorologist by any means, but for meteorologists, we do have to know some climate things, and it is possible that could enhance hurricane seasons going forward. I would really like to see more studies that, that kind of prove that, but it is a possibility. From Jonathan, with there being a cool eddy in the central Gulf, will there be some cool upwelling that could put the brakes on Laura? So this is not expected. I don't believe this is expected to kind of come across those areas. And what I'll do, is I'm going to pop back to this real quick and look here at Tropical Storm Laura, and I'm going to pop up the upper ocean heat content map. And you can see that Laura is kind of expected to go over that, but not the coolest part. So it may, but because of its fast motion, it also may not. So it's just kind of one of those wait and see games at the current moment in time. Let's see. Hypothetical, due to the wind direction that the northeast shear is southwest to northeast of Marco turn more towards Florida. Yeah, and that's basically what Charlie did. It actually came up and it turned into the more favorable shear environment and moved something like that, and the shear helped ventilate it and intensify it. So, but I don't see any signs of that happening at the current moment. Thanks for your daily discussions. I watch you every day, and you're the most easiest to understand. Thank you very much. I try to make everything really easy to understand and really easy for everyone to kind of learn and everything. From Austin, what do you think? What do you think your prediction would be on the number of named storms, hurricanes, and majors? Well, I actually did a forecast on that, and I can bring that up. I think I have it saved. I'm going to bring that up if I have it saved, and I think I do. Let me see, because I think I have it somewhere, but I am not entirely sure. Let's see. I may not have it. Either way, though, my predictions are... Oh, here it is. So the number of named storms for this year that I'm forecasting is 17 to 23 named storms, 6 to 11 hurricanes, and 3 to 6 major hurricanes. That is my forecast for this year. Mike, I expect more hurricanes that can become majors. Yeah, and John, we saw that kind of in the suppressive phase of the Madden-Julian oscillation, that we are still getting Isaias, we are still getting Hannah. We got Gonzalo, Tropical Depression 10. All of these storms that formed in the suppressive Madden-Julian oscillation phase, yeah. It was a little concerning. Could Laura still hit Key West? Not directly, no. The direct impacts to Key West are probably not going to happen, but there is a tropical storm watch for Key West, Florida, and that is in part due to a strong northerly gradient here. And this could induce some tropical storm force winds over portions of the Florida Keys tomorrow. So indirect impacts, yes, but any direct landfall impacts, no. Let's see. From Tyler, of course, brother, my first hurricane season, watching everything go down. Interesting to see how that all kind of works together. Yeah, it's a very real possibility that we end up with a lot more storms, and that's not to try to hype anything. If any of you guys watch me, you know that I'm not about hype, but this season really told us the signs in the very beginning, and it's starting to come to fruition now. Let's see. Will both of these hurricanes, with both of these hurricanes in the Gulf, do you think it will stabilize the Gulf after? Yes and no. There will be some, there will be some potential for upwelling in the Gulf of Mexico, especially with Laura, if it does become stronger. There is the potential that this could end up producing upwelling in the Gulf of Mexico and stabilize it at least for a brief period. But as we saw with Hannah, it stabilized the Gulf for a little bit, but it quickly rebounded, and now the Gulf is, almost a half a degree Celsius above average. So for a little bit it will. Do you see I'm sorry, I almost skipped Cynthia's question. Could the high ridge off the east coast of Florida move and cause the storm to veer more towards the east? There is the possibility that this could steer a little bit further east. It would not be more so because of the ridge. It would be mainly because of Marco and what influences Marco has on Laura. But it looks like that Marco won't have any significant impacts for Laura, or for that Marco won't have any significant impacts on Laura at all. All right, from Max, do you see Tropical Storm Laura becoming a Category 3 or 4? Well, I would have to say right now that since the Hurricane Center is explicitly saying that this could be a major hurricane before landfall, yes, I do think it could become a major hurricane. And talk about the Mount and Julian Oscillation. Yes, I could quite do that. I could real quickly take a look here at the Mount and Julian Oscillation. This comes from Michael Ventress's page, and obviously you can see the link up here. But let me take one real quick drink of water. So what's happening is we have the Mount and Julian Oscillation right now that is passing over the Atlantic Basin right now, and that's why the Atlantic is so active. And that actually stays active for quite some time, actually. That stays active into week 1 and even week 2 out till September 6th. So, yeah, the Mount and Julian Oscillation, it does look to be something that is going to consistently pass into the Atlantic Basin. And it will be very interesting to see how this actually pans out with more tropical cyclones that could actually end up forming. From Austin, isn't it interesting that only 5 Category 5s has hit the state since 1940? The 1940s. Didn't know that seemed like it more. Yeah, and we've only been keeping consistent hurricane records since about 1950, since 1950. So it is possible that we had prior Category 5 hurricanes in the past, but just were not necessarily documented well at all. So, it's possible, but I find it really interesting. Does it look like, hold on, from Daniello, because I almost missed you, a lot of people are worrying about the season. Yeah, people, and I've learned this even through, just kind of, scrolling through Twitter and whatnot. People tend to cancel the season and say that this season isn't going to amount to much because one particular storm is struggling and there might be a little bit of dry air. To me, it's kind of pointless, but, I don't agree with, canceling the season because, one storm isn't doing so well. And honestly, I would wish that all of these storms didn't do so well, but unfortunately we have to live in that world where these storms do what they want, Doesn't look like that we are going to get any waves that look particularly threatened to land. I don't see that right now, but we do have additional waves that will be coming off of Africa that we are going to have to watch carefully. And because of the ridge of high pressure not being broken down significantly, it would tend to move those waves further west. So it is something to kind of monitor. Threatening though, not at this current moment in time. Let's see. Will this affect me in the panhandle of Florida where I live in Tallahassee? So, to answer your question, from Marco, yes, this will impact the Tallahassee region. In fact, there's Tallahassee right there. And you notice showers and thunderstorms that are occurring over through Tallahassee. For Laura, the question, or basically, yes, there will be some impacts in terms of rain, but the significant wind impacts are not expected at the current moment and on the current trajectory. Tropical storm force winds are not expected in Tallahassee, but there could be some rain. Certainly from Marco, there will be some rain from it as well. So just kind of keep that in mind, that these two systems will kind of pull that out. This hurricane stuff fake? Well, you know, that's your choice. So, I mean, that's your choice to kind of think that. But, you know, they're real and they're here. So, we're going to talk about it. Let's see. 2010 and 2017 were both extremely active, and they didn't have their first major hurricane until after August 20th. Yeah. You know, we've seen years. In 1992 with Hurricane Andrew was a good example, where it could be the most quiet season in the world, but you get this one storm that's in a favorable environment, and boom, it's off to the races. So, you know, even in the most quietest seasons, we have something. I'm in Louisiana, and Laura's going to be a Category 3. It certainly could be, and you know, stay safe over there, because honestly, you know, this could be something very significant. So. Michael, are you going to talk about the wave in Africa? Yes, I will do that here in just a moment. Let's see. I think Laura could be anywhere from a Category 3 to Category 5. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's possible. As you have seen with Laura crossing over the mountains, do you think that tropical storms could be adapting to the environment? It does sound like a silly question. No, it's actually not a silly question. It's actually kind of a great question there, Max. You know, it is entirely possible that because of these warmer sea surface temperatures, that storms may have a better time intensifying right up until landfall just anywhere. But mountains always do their thing, right? You know, mountains aren't necessarily going to, really fluctuate in its size, basically. But with tropical cyclones, you know, if they are able to stay together, you know, for longer periods of time, it is entirely possible that, you know, these cyclones may be sort of adapting, but in the end game of things, you know, the mountains are always going to disrupt tropical storms and hurricanes. They are always going to do that, but it is possible, if you have a more robust circulation, that these storms, you know, survive over those mountains. So it is kind of a double-edged sword there in some retrospects. Let's see. How strong do you think Laura could potentially be? And I'm in Southwest Florida. Which storm will I get affected by the most? Probably by Marco right now, and then eventually Laura. Let me take a drink of water first. You can see here that on the current forecast trajectory, this is kind of the edge of the cone right here for Laura, and it comes dangerously close to Key West. And again, this could have some impacts like tornadoes and some of the rain bands. You can start to see some rain associated with the far outer bands here. And the Storm Prediction Center, and if we kind of go to that real quick, the Storm Prediction Center did actually highlight an area for isolated tornadoes tomorrow across South Florida. The Florida Keys is where this is going to have the best chance of occurring, but some heavy rain expected for all of Florida, basically, and then obviously the threat across the areas for Tropical Storm Marco and Laura. Let's see. It is funny how to answer your question very quickly, because I kind of forgot to answer the second part of the question. can the track still change? Yes, it can. But we're starting to come into a better solution. We're coming into a better idea, of what these tropical storms, of what these two tropical cyclones are going to do. It is funny how the track changes quickly. At the beginning, these storms were going over Florida, now to Texas and Louisiana. Major changes can happen, yeah. And we saw this even with Irma. Remember how Irma was expected to kind of take a path more up towards this, kind of this way. Florence in 2018 was expected to be a recurver, and Florence ended up coming all the way kind of across here. So, yeah, these things change very quickly. Weird how Laura hits after Marco, yeah. And it's kind of unfortunate, to be quite honest with you. 2020 is not the year, people. Yeah, right? At any point in time, 2020 is just a weird year, man, and it's just kind of crazy to see how things are kind of going and whatnot, it's kind of just, 2020 is weird. Yeah, exactly, right? Thanks for answering my question. My second, if we can try to keep politics to kind of a minimal, because, I know that's a very touchy, very, very touchy thing with a bunch of people, but no worries there. Thanks for answering my second question. This is from Glory, by the way. Do you think that there's a possibility Laura could move more east? I know this is the 3 to 4 days out, but I wonder if I should prepare. Well, to answer your question, and this is kind of a double-edged sword question again, I would keep in mind that this is coming up on the peak of the hurricane season, and you should always be prepared. But in terms of boarding up windows and stuff like that, there's no need to do that if you live in Florida for Laura, because the track does not seem to want to shift further towards the east. Instead, it seems to want to go further west. Now, I will play a little bit of devil's advocate and say that the CMC, I think that's the CMC, the CEMI, is forecasting this to kind of come up and do that, but I've probably not going to happen if I had to take a bet on that. The H-Wharf shows an extremely intense Hurricane Laura, yeah, and you know what? I think it's certainly a possibility, and if we go back to Hurricane Laura and where it's supposed to go, the Hurricane Center has it as a Category 2 right before landfall, but they state this could be a Category 3 exquisitely in their forecast discussion. Is there a chance that Laura gets south of Cuba, and after the eastern tip of Cuba, it could maybe strengthen, making landfall on the western tip? Yes, it is possible, and we'll jump back to the visible satellite shot here, and I'm going to switch it to where it was earlier today so you guys can kind of see more. This is that system right here, and that's kind of the center. Now, this is unlikely to kind of slip extremely far south where it doesn't interact with land at all, but this may have very minimal impact, and it can kind of skirt along and just move slightly over the western part of the Cuban coast here, and then eventually kind of scoot near the western tip of Cuba. That is a possibility for sure. The CDAS methodology shows that offshore Cuba waters are 30 to 31 Celsius. Yeah. And this is what I talked about, and I'm actually going to go look at that real quickly here to kind of give an illustration as to what's kind of occurring right now. Most of these maps are courtesy of tropicaltidbits.com. By the way, great website. But yeah, I mean, these water temperatures in this region, I mean, and I talked about it in the very beginning of the season that if something was to come along and take advantage of this, we would have a fairly big problem. Let's just take a giant fan. Hey, I wish, man. If we had a way to keep these tropical storms and hurricanes away from land, I'd be the first one to jump on board. That is for sure. I mean, I like my job, I like what I do, but I hate when it hits land. Is there another wave coming off after Laura and Marco? Yes, there kind of is, and we're going to kind of show that here. So the great thing about being able to interact with all of you is I can show this in real time, and I get to have fun while doing it. So we'll turn these tracks on and update. This is from the weathernerds.org site. We'll kind of go out here. We'll loop this. Why not? The probability of Laura going more westward is kind of high, to be quite honest with you. It's kind of high. But you can kind of see right there. We'll stop this. Here's our next wave rolling off. This is the ensembles from the Euro at about hour 144 or 138. And there's that next wave. And that ends up kind of creeping right along. And, you know, we get something else to go out here, more out here, more out here. So something maybe else in the Gulf of Mexico, too. That's interesting. Couple, you know, features in here. So, yeah, there's more waves coming off. From Max, do you think that we can have better defenses against the tropical storms? Kind of and kind of not. Our best defense right now, honestly, is the satellites and the computer models and everything else like that. That's our best defense. You know, there was some experiments done back in the 1980s and 70s and 60s to kind of prevent and neutralize tropical cyclones, but ultimately we learned the hard way that that's just not going to work quite well. Could Laura take a Hannah track? Some of the European ensembles are kind of forecasting that, but a Hannah track, not so likely, but I wouldn't rule it out 100%. You remember when the tropical wave they had coming off the east coast or from the coast of Africa, it disappeared and the model showed up becoming something around September 2nd? Yeah. We'll have to watch that. You know, that will be something that we're going to really have to watch here as we go forward with time. Saying my goal is to go into college and start natural... Hey, that's really good for you, Tyler. I'm actually starting college tomorrow. Tomorrow starts my first day of college, and I'm studying meteorology and, you know, tropical meteorology. So I'm actually very thrilled to be kind of getting into the actual science field. And it's kind of nice being able to bring what I know to you guys and you guys teaching me stuff that I don't know even. So it's kind of the best of both worlds there. I wouldn't rule the low-level center to move south of Cuba and maybe strengthen into a minimal hurricane before the Gulf. It's a possibility. You know, it's a very real possibility at the current moment because this does not seem to want to move that far off towards the northwest like it should. And we'll switch this over to the IR satellite. Take a drink of water real quick. Much better. This water is really coming in handy tonight. Let's see. Could Laura become a hurricane by tomorrow? If it stays over the water, yes. If it doesn't, then no. The main development region was cooling, but the latest graphic, I think it's warming. Excuse me. Yes, it actually is warming, actually a little bit. And let me close out some graphs here real quick, so I have a little bit more room to kind of work with. If we go here to the sea surface temperature plots from the NOAA site, yeah, you can see that this area is warming quite nicely still. So that area is still well above average. Is there a possibility of New York being hit with a major hurricane this year? Kind of hard to tell. It is really hard to tell where specifically a tropical storm or hurricane may go. That is because we just don't have the skill this far out in time when a storm hasn't even formed or there's nothing actually for a trackable feature for there to be something. But I will say this, the sea surface temperatures in that area right along the coast are continuously warming and will do so until September. So it's just some food for thought, but I have no idea and nobody really knows. But, you know, it's something that obviously we should all be mindful of, that it is hurricane season. And it's best if you live in a hurricane-prone area to, have plans in place in case if, in case if a hurricane does come your way. It seems like more west as it moves into the Gulf is stronger because more time over water, but that would also mean that at one point it should curve north. Yes, it should curve north at some point in time, but at what point it does that remains fairly uncertain because the models don't necessarily have a full grasp on this, and I don't think they will until this moves off of Cuba because the center is continuously shifting around and it's moving south, it's moving north, it's moving left and right, So the bottom line is at some point it should curve north, but where exactly is going to be very crucial. Let's see. Oh shoot, man. Hey, that's nice. Full stack web development. That's really cool because honestly, I run a website, but I don't really keep it. I don't really keep it maintained that much, just because I find it personally hard. With doing all these graphics and continuously having to kind of streamline through the website and work and it's just kind of a whole mess there, the whole 9 yards. I start college classes tomorrow, and it will be hard. To get these updates. Just check back whenever you have time, man. I don't expect anyone to be watching my channel 24/7, since I don't I don't anticipate anyone to watch my channel 24/7. I'm surprised we got a lot of people on right now. To be quite honest with you, can Laura get to a category 5? I wouldn't say it's unlikely. It's not impossible. But right now, there's so much uncertainty that it's a little hard to determine exactly what's going to end up happening. Congrats. Hope you become an expert. I also have a passion in tropical meteorology, but I have still 5 more years. Oof. Hey, but follow your passion, And I started really getting into weather when I was probably 8. And, everyone thought I was crazy. No one, and for a time, I never thought, that I would even get into college for meteorology. It's a lot of math. I suck at math, and, well, I'm going to college tomorrow and getting that started. So, yeah, so that would be something to watch. Got enough tabs open? No, I can never have enough tabs open. I have way too many. I'm going to start clearing them here in a little bit, but I'm going to try to keep this, discussion running as long as possible because it's really nice interacting with everyone. Is there any dry air and shear that can involve in lore in the Gulf? Well, there is shear currently, and if I can get to it, there we go. This is the shear in the Gulf of Mexico. This is in part because of this trough. Once this trough starts to abate over the next few days, this anticyclone will start to move north, and it will start to ventilate the Gulf of Mexico. As far as dry air, the only reason why Marco is suffering right now from dry air is because of this upper level trough that is kicking in dry air from Mexico. So after that point in time, when this anticyclone moves off towards the north and west here and it propagates back that way, no, there will not be any shear and dry air for it to work with. Although, if Marco kind of holds around for a little bit longer and is still a little bit of a stronger cyclone that kind of just mills around along the coast, yes, it is possible that the outflow could actually cause a little bit of shear from Marco to Laura. So that is a possibility, but not a high likelihood at the current moment. Thank you, very helpful. Thank you very much. I'm glad you asked questions. I'm glad I could be certainly of use. Do you think that we could have a potential hurricane/major hurricane landfall in September or October this year? It's certainly a possibility. It's certainly a very real possibility. I mean, this season is still young. The night is still young, they say, and things are just kind of getting started. So, but in Florida in particular, it remains to be seen. It's a very uncertain ball game, and as I replied to someone else just a couple of minutes ago, it's very hard to determine where places are going to be impacted months out, let alone a week out. Hard for real to me to go to shelter because of COVID and being disabled. Yeah, and I'm really sorry for that, and I really hope everything kind of works out with your situation. And being disabled and having COVID, or not having COVID, but with COVID and being disabled, I am very sorry. That is a very significant struggle that a lot of people don't take into consideration, is that we have people who are disabled. They can't do anything. And it really, sucks to be those people, because sometimes people don't take that into consideration when evacuation plans are in place. So, and that's why I always say, consider your family needs, because during evacuations, you have to consider everything. Now, luckily, for Ocala, Florida, that's inland. That's up in Marion County. And, that's inland. But, you get a hurricane coming through Tampa that's moving at 20 miles an hour, worst case scenario, it may not, weaken that much. So, yeah, I'm really sorry to hear that. If you're going to college, can you still keep us updated? Absolutely. Since college is online, I have the opportunity to kind of, when I get home from work or whatever, to jump on and do an update. I'm not working that long of shifts, I don't think. I get my schedule on Monday when my schedule drops, but I don't think that it's going to be too long. So I should be able to do it after work. So yeah, I'll definitely be able to keep everyone updated. The upper level trough that is interacting with Marco, generally moving northwest along with Marco and weakening with time. It is affecting Marco, but by the time Laura arrives, it should be inland. Yes, it certainly should be, and it should not be, it shouldn't really be that much of a factor, except for creating an anticyclone to help ventilate, to help ventilate Laura. This is a great channel, and this is the best one yet. And thank you very much, Paula. I very much appreciate that. I hope it's pronounced Paula. But thank you very much. I do greatly appreciate that, and that really means a lot, actually. What got you into the tropics? Was it a certain storm? Kind of, but kind of not. I moved down here to Florida in 2015, and I actually lived along the South Carolina coast for a while. And that was in 2014 and 15, of course, the big La Nina year, or El Nino year in 2015. There was a tropical storm, I believe, in 14 or 15 that kind of moved through South Carolina. And, at one point it's forecast to be a hurricane, and I remember it. And that's kind of when I really got into it. But it really wasn't until I moved to Florida, and we had Hurricanes Hermine and Matthew in 2016, that I kind of started getting through, that I started kind of getting into the tropical meteorology side of things. I was already really fascinated with, meteorology, tornadoes. I lived in Indiana for a while, so I dealt with tornadoes for, a good bit of my time there. But that was kind of when I started getting into tropical meteorology, when I got into, basically when I came down here to Florida. I don't know if it's anyone else, but I got a bad feeling about these storms. Got another ace up there. Yeah, I mean, these storms just kind of they like to pull fast ones on us. And we saw that with Marco having a very rapid change from almost going over Texas to now potentially affecting Louisiana as a hurricane. So, yeah, these things kind of, like to take fast ones on us. Take care, Tyler, and hope y'all have a great rest of your evening. Geez, this season could be worse than 2005 and 2017 combined. Those two seasons, it was certainly very hard, but if you're talking landfall threats, if you have hurricane after hurricane after hurricane that hits the United States or anywhere else, that's easily one of your worst seasons individually, you know what I'm saying? We are all very thankful for your hard work. Thank you very much, Cynthia. That really means a lot to me. Even though I live in the UK, hey, another UK friend. It is interesting that I follow these storms. Yeah. And that is, these tropical cyclones are very fascinating to watch. They are very, very fascinating. And, certainly being able to kind of watch these has taught me a lot over the years. We're in Florida. I am in Central Florida, near the Orlando metro area. I first got interested in tropical cyclones when I went through Hannah. Since then, I've been watching your videos and educating myself. Hey, nice. Yeah, Hannah was a situation where it was very weird. It was from an old tropical wave, I believe, that came off of Africa too. So, but it's good that you watch these things and try to educate yourself, because so often, sometimes people don't. Sometimes that these tropical cyclones, they come up on you quick, and some people don't understand that. Your mic cuts out. I know that there's been issues with my mic cutting out, but it could also just be me kind of just taking a break and to come up for air, because I talk really fast and sometimes I need to come up for breath, obviously. So, and me taking a drink of water from time to time. So it could be that, but I know sometimes I've had some issues with stuttering of that. So I'll have to check into that. I think I know what it is, but I'll have to kind of do some testing on that probably tomorrow or whatever. How often do these high pressure ridges break? They can break down from time to time, but if you didn't get like a trough or anything to kind of propagate itself to kind of force the breakdown, they don't break down all that often by their own. It's mainly a trough of low pressure or some entity to kind of help break and erode that ridge. That's mainly why we get the ridge to actually break and fall apart, is because of different entities that are kind of breaking the ridge into smaller bits and then eroding it and shifting it further east. The first time I got interested in the tropics was Cindy in 2017, and I remember that. I think that came through Louisiana too, if I'm not mistaken. I remember that. I was following Mark Sudduth and his team when they were deploying their camera equipment there for Sydney. And 2017 was my first real year that I got any good data collection. I got amazing data collection when Irma came right over. I was basically in the eye wall, and it was incredible. I got some good collection during Dorian last year, Isaias this year. So, we've gotten some pretty good data from these tropical storms over the last couple of years, and even from Matthew in 2016. How many landfalls have we had in the U.S.? I think we are approaching 5 or 6. I think after this, though, after these two cyclones, we're probably going to have 7, I think. If we're at 5, 2 should be 7. So I think we're approaching 7 with Laura and Marco. In terms of the maximum wind speed and pressure, what do you think will be the strongest storm this year? Hard to say, really hard to say. And once again, I kind of steer clear of trying to forecast any particular storm to be at any particular strength unless we know that, what's going to occur. So it's very hard to say, but I think there could be some certain intense tropical cyclones this year. And unfortunately, Laura might be one of them. Even though these storms form thousands of miles away, they still impact, yeah. Because, and like we're seeing with this, the model guidance, it recurves it out. And this is at what point it becomes an extratropical cyclone up and through this region. It moves out, gets carried by extratropical processes up into Ireland and the United Kingdom, and does some pretty significant damage from time to time there. And it just goes to show that these things, they don't just stop when they hit land. They can, but most times they get carried up into additional energy that converts them into extratropical processes, and it impacts somewhere else, and sometimes often stronger than what it did initially at the landfall point, especially if they're weaker storms. What has been the most interesting storm for you to follow and track since you've been into this? Probably Irma and Dorian. Irma in 17, that was, of course, a no-brainer for me. That was one of the storms that directly impacted me with the, with the eye wall coming right over. Dorian, for a while, we were actually considering evacuating Even here in the Orlando metro, we were considering evacuating further north. So that was probably one of the most interesting storms for me to track this year. It sounds like your mic. Okay, I'll have to look into that, but thank you for kind of letting me know. I will look into that because that is something that some other people have said, and I'm going to try to make it as best as I possibly can. I don't know if it's the fact that I'm dealing with a relatively low C drive space on my computer. I'll kind of have to see what's kind of occurring. So thank you for letting me know, because that will definitely help the videos and live streams kind of going forward. Been watching your videos, been watching since May. Nice to see how you've grown every day as a speaker. Very informative. Thank you very much. That's extremely nice of you to say. I'm very glad that you've been watching since May, and thank you for kind of being a part of everything that I'm trying to do here and kind of get across. I've lived in Puerto Rico since I was born. I got interested in meteorology with Recon in 2015. Although it didn't affect me that much, but that's what really pushed me was Maria. Yeah, Maria, and I remember that rapidly. That was almost a Category 5, and in my opinion, it should have been a Category 5 because that thing blew up coming through the Lesser Antilles and then in through Puerto Rico. It just blew up. I think the pressures might have been lower than Irma at the time, so that's a little concerning. Maria was a very scary storm. Can you please explain the knots in miles per hour in the storm wind and how to convert them? So basically, knots is just another measurement speed. Basically, for every knot, you increase that by about 1 mile per hour. So if we do a real quick kind of Google thing here, so we'll just say 55 knots, 2 miles per hour. And that gives us 63 miles per hour. And it says the formula for this, for the approximate result, multiply the speed value by about 1.151 for every knot that you increase. So if you're curious about that, that is kind of how you do the calculations for that. What if Florida goes between the Yucatan Peninsula and the western tip of Cuba? It's certainly possible. I'm going to take a drink of water real quick. I want to answer your question. So, it is certainly possible because right now we can kind of see that what we end up having is kind of a circulation center that is almost either right over or just paralleling the coastline. And this is a very bad trend that I don't want to see, because this now brings it and keeps it over water for longer, and this allows for more intensification as it kind of traverses this area. Could Laura drop a Camille? Hopefully not, but it is possible that this could strengthen pretty significantly in the Gulf of Mexico. Do you know when the next tropical wave will come off of Africa? Well, to kind of look at that, we can kind of see that the ensembles from the European are forecasting tropical cyclone development potentially, this is not going to happen, it's not a guarantee, but potentially here by August 29th or so, we have tracks starting to show up, and maybe even something sneaking its way into the Bay of Campeche and Gulf of Mexico, so that will be something to watch. Real quickly, I'm going to show the H-Wharf runs because I did not show that for the 18Z runs. So I'm going to kind of roll through that while I'm looking at things. How many times has Florida been lucky this year? A lot. We had Isaias, which was almost looking like it was going to impact Florida. Laura here, which looked like it was going to also impact Florida. And we've just gotten incredibly lucky this year that we haven't had very significant impacts to Florida. So, that's great news. I tracked Maria since it was a tropical wave. Is really most impressive how it strengthened. Yeah, I mean, it just blew up. And, so many people, and I saw this even yesterday even, when someone was saying, I'm not going to watch Laura because it's a weak tropical storm, but now look, it has the potential to rapidly intensify in the Gulf of Mexico. So, just goes to show these things can really change quite quickly here. For what it's worth, actually, here on the H-Wharf, this is actually showing a farther southern solution. I cannot talk this evening. And then it deepens it fairly quickly into a pretty substantial hurricane in the Gulf of Mexico. And for what it's worth, my goodness, that just... Alright, I'm not going to show beyond that point in time, but yeah, that's concerning. That's the latest H-Wharf. To answer your question, not to be rude, but do you feel a responsibility to inform the public and putting yourself in harm's way when you have the Hurricane Center? So, I don't really put myself in harm's way. I kind of, I know I've been doing this, for enough time. I've studied tropical cyclones. I'm no expert, but I know kind of when is the time that I need to start being concerned myself and start preparing me and my family. And, I'm always on top of it with, preparing my family for impacts and myself. I'm not going to go driving through a Category 5 hurricane, but in some sense, I do feel that, yes, I do feel the responsibility because people here depend, on me to bring these forecasts. And I do feel responsible, but a good responsible because I like doing this. And if it wasn't for you guys, this wouldn't be possible. I wouldn't have my hurricane cameras, almost like with what Mark Sudduth does. I wouldn't have that opportunity if it wasn't for you guys, because you guys are the one that kind of drives these new ideas and makes them a possibility. Hold on. Well, first of all, let me answer more questions here from Jonathan. It was Wilma for me. Oof, yeah. Wilma was one powerful storm. And I really hope to never see a Wilma impact, or a Wilma ever again, that's for sure. Has confirmed the 8 o'clock advisory will make landfall in the western tip of Cuba. I did not see the 8 o'clock, so let's go ahead and pull up the 8 o'clock advisory package. Laura, now located over eastern Cuba, so it is about 1,000 millibars. And yeah, so that's going to make landfall here near Mexico, or not near Mexico, but near the eastern part of Cuba. And that will eventually kind of traverse this area and kind of move through here. So that will be one heck of an interesting thing to deal with. Sustained winds are roughly about 60 miles per hour, pressure of about 1,000, moving west-northwest at 21. The government of the Bahamas has discontinued the tropical storm warning for portions of the islands in the southeast Bahamas. So that is good news for there. Marco, no changes, 75 miles per hour, 991, moving north-northwest at 13, and is expected to move near the Louisiana coast on Monday. No additional changes to that at all. So that is some good news with Laura, is that we did have the tropical storm watch for the southeast Bahamas canceled. Will you do a winter forecast? To be quite honest with you, I could, but I am not very well. Although I was in an environment where, winter weather was a part of Indiana lifestyle, I never really focused on winter weather. But if it is something that people really want to see and really kind of want to see my thoughts going into winter weather, I could certainly kind of take a deeper dive into winter weather as these kind of winter storms develop and stuff like that. I think that would be something kind of good for me to kind of get into, so I can kind of learn more about the winter weather side. But if people want to see that, yeah, sure, I'll definitely kind of get into winter season, winter weather stuff as well. But it's only on the eastern tip, and it's moving quite quick, so the 11 o'clock could be back over water, yeah. I mean, and that's kind of one of these things that this is really kind of moving almost right over, kind of paralleling the coastline. If I can find our satellite, there we go. It's kind of moving right over the very far eastern tip, and that's going to probably move back over water within some time. So that will be kind of interesting. Let's see. So will Laura be moving more west? Yes, Laura will more than likely be moving more west, yes. Do you think the National Hurricane Center is underestimating Laura? I don't think they're necessarily underestimating Laura, but I think what's kind of occurring is that we're getting conflicting things because there's some discrepancy in the track and how that affects intensity. But I think it is kind of best for the Hurricane Center to be conservative at this point in time before kind of increasing their odds of having a major hurricane making landfall somewhere. And do you think Houston and surrounding county are going to be affected? For Houston, it is a possibility. The current Hurricane Center forecast does have that cone of uncertainty kind of included in Houston for Laura, and for Marco, there is also the possibility for some rainfall, but that's about it. But from Laura, yes, the kind of this area, far west Houston or far east Houston onwards towards the east, is kind of in this cone of uncertainty on the very far western edge. But with these models trending ever so west, it's going to be interesting to see. The next advisory, the next full advisory comes out as of 11 o'clock Eastern time this evening. The intermittent advisory just came out about 6 minutes ago at 8 o'clock. But the next full advisory with the track and new intensity and discussion comes out at 11. Florida has a barrier. Yeah. You know, it's kind of funny because I've heard people not joking about that. But hey, you know, but these storms got to go somewhere, and unfortunately this one looks like that it's going to be making more of a track into Louisiana, and some places that are going to get heavy rainfall with Marco might get heavy rainfall with Laura, so flash flooding could be a concern there as well. Excuse me. Yeah, I totally agree. I do love how your videos are produced. Didn't mean to be rude. Some UK people sound no, it didn't come off rude at all. I've gotten a lot of people kind of asking me questions. I've gotten a lot of people asking me questions about things, and I like when people ask me questions about the tropics and what I think and etc. because it's a good interaction, and I certainly like building that interaction here on the YouTube platform. My throat is becoming increasingly dry, so yay me. Let's see. What are your potential impacts on Jamaica from Laura? I'm in Kingston, Jamaica. So first of all, I will say I love Jamaica. I've been there, and I really love Jamaica. But getting back to the impacts, you notice how some of these very cool cloud tops are forming over Jamaica, with some of the kind of warmer cloud tops over expanding into Jamaica. Heavy rainfall will be the primary concern, and those mountains, I'll tell you this, can cause a flash flooding concern in a heartbeat, and some mudslides are possible. So the biggest impacts for Jamaica is going to be heavy rain and gusty winds, mudslides and flash flooding. You will likely not receive the core from Laura though. So heavy rainfall, gusty winds, maybe an isolated tornado or two, those sort of things. It got better organized over, yeah, it got way better organized over Hispaniola. It was more organized over land than it was over water. And Hispaniola has mountains, very high mountains, upwards of about, somewhere on the order, maybe 5,000-6,000 feet or so, probably higher. That was crazy. Let me take another drink of water here real quick. Let's see. Laura's impressive of the convective pattern over Dominican Republic. Even Nick Underwood said that he has never seen so much lightning in the NOAA 43 flights. Yeah. And, I actually followed him, I actually got into a discussion with Nick the other day on Twitter about the Recon flights, and how long they fly for and their longest missions, etc. And that was kind of a really cool interaction that I had with some of the Air Force reconnaissance people and the NOAA reconnaissance people. It was kind of a neat experience. But, and I saw what Nick said, and, it's certainly Interesting. I have not seen a storm with that much lightning, except for in convective bands, but certainly not near the center. And that was kind of crazy, to be quite honest with you. What's the highest winds Gonzales, Louisiana will experience? Okay, so for most of Louisiana, and we're going to be very broad because, and I caution against this, and I see some people doing it, and I caution against this. I can't exquisitely and explicitly forecast for a specific town. The main reason is because there's significant uncertainty and these will change. But for eastern Louisiana with Marco, you will likely see tropical storm force winds 60 to 70 miles per hour with some hurricane force winds confined to the coastline. For portions of the western part of Louisiana with Marco, you will likely see winds 35 to 40, maybe 50 miles per hour. And with Marco, you might see wind, or with Laura rather, western Louisiana may see winds that come up over 70, 80, 90 miles per hour. Eastern Louisiana at this time would probably see 50 or 60 or less. So, if that kind of answers your question, hopefully it did. I live on the Alabama-Georgia line. Do you think we are in the clear except from... yeah, so the Alabama-Georgia line, that's right here. Now, there will be some rain from Marco that will spread northeast as the shear kind of kicks in and spreads that off towards the north and east. From Laura, there's virtually not going to be any impacts. There might be some rain, but nothing significant at all, and it really won't even be of any consequence and concern for you at all. So for that question, from Marco, a little bit, but from Laura, not so much. So you guys are in the clear basically from both. There's a lot of lightning occurring right now. Yeah, there is. Okay, the path for Marco. Let me switch to that real quick. I have so many tabs open that I don't know which tabs are which. Here we go. This is the path for Hurricane Marco right here. And again, we've got you can see everything that's kind of occurring right now. So 75 miles per hour, 991 millibars, and this is the Hurricane Center track here. Now, this is a Category 1 hurricane and is expected to remain a Category 1 hurricane all the way up through landfall or near landfall in eastern Louisiana. Tropical storm watches extend all the way towards near Pensacola, Florida, with hurricane warnings all the way over to near Lake Pontchartrain in New Orleans. Tropical storm warnings all the way to near the Texas-Louisiana line. And this is expected to kind of make this curve and weaken as it kind of moves in towards the Louisiana region. So I hope that kind of answers your question there. Would you need to get a course of meteorology? I know you said you need baths. Well, if you want to get into meteorology, there's specific programs for meteorology. Now, if you don't explicitly want to do a meteorology program, you can do something like a geography or a coding program and work for the modeling centers that run the forecast models, or work for testing and development companies and webmasters and etc. It just all kind of depends on what you really want to do, because for meteorology, you need physics and you need math. And that is, math for me is one of the hardest things that I actually struggle in. So, but that is what you actually need for meteorology. And you also need to have a basic understanding of how to code, which will be taught obviously in the classroom. But the college that I'm going to, it's a very small, kind of private college over there in Melbourne, Florida. But they teach you how to code and everything, and it's actually really cool. The rain just started here in Jamaica with a lot of lightning, yeah. And that's going to be kind of the theme throughout the night, because there is a lot of deep convection that is kind of associated with it that is going to be affecting Jamaica overnight. And even the eastern part of Haiti is not out of the woods yet. Obviously, Cuba, you still got a long way to go until you're out of the woods. But stay safe down there, and certainly kind of keep us updated on what's going on. By looking at the H-WRF, the simulated IR satellite, by hour 36, tops are cold, but the overall appearance of Laura is ragged. But notice how at hour 42, yeah, and it really kind of depends on what land interaction this actually has. If we switch here to the H-WRF model for Laura, or I'm sorry, this is the H-MON, but we'll switch to the H-WRF for Laura, if we can. There we go. That's not Laura. That is still not Laura. Which one's Laura? I don't think I have. There we go. That one's Laura. I have so many tabs open. You can kind of see where it kind of comes over the eastern part of Cuba. I'm going to drink some water here. The eastern part of Cuba, and this kind of eventually moves back over water and quickly recovers. And then it moves back over the western part of Cuba and then eventually into the Gulf of Mexico, where at hour 42 that you're referencing, 989 millibars, or 988.8 millibars, winds are increasing. You've got the eastern semicircle here, and now things are really starting to take off. And we'll kind of move that forward out to about hour 48. I don't know why this is lagging behind. But 979.4, the winds will start catching up there shortly after. And at that point, boom, there you go. So, very interesting trends in the models tonight and also in the observed data. When I found it so impressive that rain could cool off a 99 to 100 degree to a low to mid 80s. Yeah, and actually, that happens quite a lot here in Central Florida, that our afternoon, temperatures get up to near 100 degrees, 90 to 100. And I have a weather station out back that kind of, measures all of that. We get maybe a ½ inch to an inch of rain, and the temperatures are down in the upper 70s, but the humidity is higher. So you kind of get a trade-off, but we actually got some rain today. It's actually 86 degrees out right now at my home location, so really crazy. The impacts from Laura near me, data captured from weather station 10 miles southwest of me, max 10 second 51 miles an hour. Wow, that's quite impressive, honestly. And the 40 mile southwest peak gust of 75, yeah, that was from that mesovortice that came through Puerto Rico, and it was really close to drilling down to be the surface low, and it indeed might have been the surface low for about 10 or 15 minutes before it got killed by the mountains, basically. I'm at Pensacola Beach. Stay safe to all my Gulf Coast neighbors. Yeah, stay safe, everyone, and living on the Gulf Coast is certainly interesting. As I am into the tropics, I'm also into astronomy. I find it interesting that different planets have storms in the same structure. I don't know if you have any knowledge of this. I actually, think it's Jupiter that kind of has something almost like these hurricanes, these fluid hurricanes. And it looks so crazy to see these spin up in almost the same fashion that our typical hurricanes on planet Earth do. And I find that very interesting. Thank you for answering my question. I really appreciate you and all you do. Thank you very much. And of course, I'm here to ask questions, and, I'm here to do, anything that could happen. You should start by plugging in the brand of water you're drinking, trying to get endorsement money. Yeah, right? I mean, literally. My throat is literally so dry because I've been doing constant updates today. I've been talking with some of my colleagues, about these two storms. I've kind of been conferring with, a couple of people today about these storms, and it's kind of just crazy. I've been talking so much, and I have to talk a lot more tomorrow, so yay me. Anyone else have metal roofs? I love going to sleep. Yes, actually I do. And that rain on the metal roof is actually so great. It's not my whole roof is not metal, but the one out near my window is actually a metal covering. And I don't know why, but our house was built like that, because our house is a custom built house. you know, and on the second story up in my basically up in my room slash office, I have a metal roof, and it's kind of nice to listen to it. Greetings from Canada. Hey, what's up? I've only been to Canada once, but it was to Niagara Falls, and it was pretty cool. Hey, getting some rain right now. Dropped to about 76 at the moment. Wow. Yeah, these storms can drop temperature just like a rock. What makes these storms curve to the north? Okay, so great question. And to illustrate that, I'm going to kind of back out here to something else real quick. I'm going to kind of pan towards a much different area. So these storms that curve to the north, and you know, it's going to go not super in depth, but we basically have a ridge of high pressure that's kind of sitting out here like this. Basically, well, let's draw that a little bit better. Basically, this is what's known as the Bermuda Azores High. The Azores Islands is up here, Bermuda's right there. As these tropical cyclones kind of come around, basically low pressure, high pressure goes to low pressure, and or it might be the other way around. Low pressure goes to high pressure. Yeah, low pressure goes to, or no, excuse me, high pressure goes to low pressure. Oh my God, I cannot get it right tonight. But what ends up happening is the wind flow around these cyclones and around this this high pressure is basically as such that it's kind of actually making the winds. If this was our ridge of high pressure out here, the winds are actually coming out from this way, and they're kind of flowing in this direction out here. It's a clockwise circulation instead of counterclockwise with like what we see with low pressure systems. And what ends up happening is if you have a cyclone in here, let's just say, this ridge of high pressure isn't especially strong out towards the west, for reference. And you know, and this will eventually move around kind of that ridge there, because basically an area of low pressure out here is going to tug storms towards the north, and then upper latitude cyclones basically kind of come in and do the rest and carry this on out, usually in towards portions of the United Kingdom and Ireland and places like that. Very dumbed down and very, you know, a very basic explanation, but I hope that kind of answered your question as to why. How many more storms or hurricanes do you think this season, excuse me, how many more storms or hurricanes do you think we will have this year? It's possible we have a lot more, to be honest with you. It's possible that, you know, come by September 10th and beyond, we could have a lot more storms that we got to talk about. Kind of hard to predict an actual number, but if I had to guess, maybe another, you know, 8 or 9 or 10 storms. Certainly possible. Quick question. What happened with Mission 9 and Marco? So they were doing a holding, that was the upper level recon that was in Marco. They had, I guess, some mechanical issues with the aircraft. They were doing a holding pattern at about flight level 250 or 25,000 feet. And then they were trying to burn off some fuel and dump some fuel. And then so that way they could go to land as a lighter aircraft. So my guess it was some sort of mechanical issues with the aircraft. Because usually aircraft don't do that. And it wasn't a non-safe environment to fly out. So my guess it would be mechanical issues with the aircraft is what kind of made them, you know, kind of force them to go back to Lakeland. We're getting some obvious, completely unrelated lightning here in Toronto. I've never been to Toronto, but, you know, honestly, that's someplace that I kind of want to go, to be honest. My chair is squeaky, too. I need some WD-40. He got money. I don't. But, you know, it's certainly, I'm privileged to be in a position where I'm at right now to be doing this. You know, I'm certainly in a position where I'm thankful that I have a bunch of people that, you know, support the kind of work that I do, that I have a great group of people to support me, because to be honest with you, you know, it wouldn't be possible for me to do what I do now without, you know, a lot of support. And that's kind of what makes doing YouTube so enjoyable. So I appreciate everyone who has supported this channel and who continues to, even to the second. Why are the storm called hurricanes and typhoons in the Western Pacific? So it is the same thing. Let me take one more drink of water here. So they are called the same thing, or that they are the same thing, but it's just what different countries call different things. And the World Meteorological Association recognizes them by different names. Excuse me, but they are, in essence, they're all hurricanes. Whether it's cyclone, whether it's, typhoon, whatever, it's all a hurricane. I kind of wish sometimes it was streamlined, but for particular countries, they call it different things, and, that's kind of what their meteorological group decides to call them, so that's just what they call them. I'm seeing a lot of interesting tweets by Levi Cowan and Andy Hazelton. It seems like the LLC is already weakening. I haven't seen that, so I'm going to pop up Twitter and actually look to see if that is happening right now. Yeah, here we go. So here's Levi Cowan's tweet. So be slightly southward. Whether the mid-level center nudges the low-level center is how much interaction with Cubus. So the radar-derived center and then the possible mid-level center is tilted a little bit further towards the south. Yeah. Andy Hazelton. Some of it could be a radar alternation, but it looks like the small circulation of lower went inland and is already weakening. Wonder if we're going to see yet another attempt of reformation just a bit south, though. And this is concerning. That is concerning because if it shifts further south, that keeps it further away from Cuba. So ultimately, this is going to have a problem kind of going forward. Tropical tidbits, Levi mentioned it earlier. You sometimes see downshear reformation. Like this could happen anyway, and in this case, I think the train weakening the low-level center on the north side might enhance this process potentially. Excuse me. So that is certainly interesting, and I have not seen that, but I'm actually going to comment on that right now. And I cannot spell. So this is going to have big implications. This is going to have implications going forward with time. That is for sure. And that could mean that we end up actually getting a center that forms further towards the south. And that would ultimately put this more southerly solution on a better track and certainly a better possibility at that current moment in time. The H-Wharf does have this kind of moving further south, and it is stronger at that point. Obviously, this would change both track and intensity short term. So my Twitter, if you're curious about following me there, it is at MikeRomali1 right here. And links are in the descriptions of my hurricane outlook and discussions. But if you want to go follow me, that's where it's at right now. MikeRomali1 is my Twitter handle. And yes, I do post consistent updates. I post a ton of updates. This is some of the stuff that I do regarding some of the updates. And I can... you can see some of the updates that I do. This is kind of a more surefire way to kind of get where, I'm not updating on YouTube 24/7, but if you want to go follow me, that is that. Guantanamo Bay, 45 sustained gust to 67. Wow. That's impressive. I did not see that. And this is what I was talking about Tallahassee, that, they're going to be getting some heavier rain from this, certainly. And that's going to be one thing that we're really going to have to watch here, kind of going forward with time. But yeah, this is definitely going to change the track and intensity forecasting, that is for sure. It is rather interesting how both of the storms have evolved track-wise. Yeah, both of these storms have kind of acted a little bit weird, and they have done a lot of weird things, but we're starting to kind of see where the majority of the consensus is starting to kind of get better, better in tune here with situations. If Laura goes south of Cuba, could it become a Category 4? It's a little bit too early to say if this could become a 4 or 5. But south of Cuba would limit land interaction and allow for a stronger cyclone to form. Yes. So, in a way, the answer is yes. Highly recommend your Twitter. It's great, along with Mark South, Levi Cali. Thank you very much. I certainly don't know as much as them. They know way more than me. I have to continuously ask questions to better understand things. But I greatly appreciate you kind of recommending that, because that really means a lot to know that I can provide some beneficial information going forward with time. Laura was first expected to pass north of Puerto Rico, then come to notice Laura already formed southward in the past. Yeah, I mean, come on. Laura has just kind of been one of those crazy storms that we've just been seeing things kind of change from time to time. Is there a possibility for a very wide east turn? No, not really. The eastward solution is basically coming to a zilch chance. I would say it's non-zero, but it's highly unlikely at this point. So do you think the models could come more towards the west or east? For Laura, they're probably going to go further west. For Laura, it's probably going to be further west. That is kind of the general consensus tonight, is that it would tend to move further west. And I don't know, excuse me, I don't know if the 0Z guidance is out, and it doesn't look like it is, but once that does happen, we will have to see things. I'm actually going to check my Twitter DMs real quick to see about my group chat, because I know that some people are kind of posting things in the group chat. I do suspect at 11 o'clock, however, and this is one of the things that I was looking at in the group chat on Twitter, one of the things that we're going to have to watch is for Marco to actually shift its track further towards the east. The Hurricane Center, for what it's worth, had a very weird jump towards the north and west here. That's not happening, so it's probably going to be shifted further east here with Hurricane Marco. So this would be concerning. I'm just typing something real quick in the group chat. All right. 0Z guidance should be out in a few, about 10 to 20. Yeah, I'm going to wait here. I'm going to kind of wait for the 0Z models, kind of go over them, and then probably cut it off somewhere about 9:30-ish or so to kind of get ready for it tomorrow. Because I do have school tomorrow, so. Meaning not high school, but college. So, joys. Luckily, though, I kind of get to be on kind of whenever I really want to. I don't have a set time that I got to be on for college, so that's kind of great. It's online, so thank God for that. So if the pressure is higher, the storm is weaker, or if the lower the pressure, so it's Generally speaking, yes, it is that way. The lower the pressure, the wind, it causes a higher gradient, and thus the wind has to speed up as a result of that gradient that's being created. But I have seen hurricanes that have been stronger pressures, that have been, like Irma was a Category 5, and its pressure was high for Category 5, and same with Maria, for what it's worth. Lower reconnaissance found that Marco relatively higher, drops on 996 to 999. Yeah, that's interesting. Tropical Twitter accounts, yes. I can certainly recommend a lot. So you can go through, I'll kind of go through my followings here. So this one here, this guy right here, Mike Adcock, he is a international aviation meteorologist, and he does a lot with recon flights. He will occasionally post recon information and stuff like that. So if you guys do want to go, kind of check him out, that would be great. This guy right here, he works for the Air Force Reconnaissance Aircraft, the Air Force Reconnaissance 53rd Weather Squadron. Let's see here. Blake Matthews, he's a meteorologist. Specifically tropical, Jack Sillen, he is great. Jack Sillen is a great person to follow. Let's see here. Scrolling through all of the people that I follow here. TC Alert, he does some WXTCA, he does some pretty good things as well, and is fairly good at understanding tropics. So if you guys don't want to follow him, he is fairly good. Let's see here. Ben Knoll, he does a lot of great things. Logan Gills, he does some really good tropical stuff as well. Obviously, Tomer Berg, he does some great stuff. Tyler Castillo. Let's see here. There's just a lot there to kind of watch. But Michael Fisher, Tony Bright, he actually works with Mark Sudduth, and he follows me. So make sure to go follow him. Of course, Mike Thesis. Michael Watkins, he also works with Mark Sudduth. So make sure to go follow. Basically, those are the great tropical accounts, and there's a lot, to be honest, to kind of go through. I'm very concerned about Laura. Some models indicate Category 4, possibly Category 5 before landfall. It's a possibility, it's a very real possibility that this could be stronger than what the Hurricane Center is forecasting. Especially if it goes further south, and that would be of a significant concern. Recon videos are really interesting. You get to see the raw power. Yeah, and I've been in contact with a lot of the people that do the recon flights. That kind of get to fly out there and do that stuff, and it's very interesting, and that's actually what I really want to do in the future, is go on recon flights and be part of the recon team, either for the Air Force or for the NOAA Hurricane Hunters. Of course, Air Force, you have to go through your basic training and stuff like that, but basically for NOAA you have to as well. You go to Coast Guard training for the recon planes. Especially if you want to be a pilot. The wind shear is going to relax and the Gulf is going to warm. Yeah. That wind shear is going to relax, and we can kind of take a look at that here. That this wind shear right now that's over Marco is mainly induced because of a trough. Once this trough clears, and it will, this upper level anticyclone is going to park itself over the Gulf and allow for a very favorable environment for Laura to intensify in. That is for sure. So So Laura will or might be our first major hurricane. It certainly could be, yes. What do you want to do after you complete college? Work for National Hurricane Center. Well, I want to work here for the Weather Service office somewhere in Florida. I don't know exactly where yet. Maybe National Hurricane Center for a little bit, and then try to go towards the NOAA Hurricane Hunters or the Air Force Hurricane Hunters. It's also rather interesting how the mid-level center in Laura's track has been very deep convection, but the president hasn't really been trying to drill down to the surface, except, yeah, and, you know, I'm very curious, but I think it's going to try to. I certainly think it's really going to try to, and that IR satellite image is kind of telling here. I'm going to let this kind of play out a little bit so it loads the newest frames. So, you know, and right now I'm kind of just, you know, in my group chat here on Twitter with, you know, some you know, people who, you know, like to track these, you know, storms. They're actually saying that, you know, a new center might form just offshore. And that is relatively bad news if you don't want a strong storm, because this is going to keep it more off towards the, off away from the coastal areas. If this thing doesn't load, I swear to heavens. Because I want this thing to load so I can actually show the IR, but, okay, now you're at 90%. Nice. 93, we'll let that keep going. In reality, the low-level center never really wanted to become vertically aligned. Yeah, it never really did want to become vertically aligned, but look what's starting to occur. You notice all this deep convection out here. I would watch for a new center to form somewhere in this vicinity in here. I would really watch that. Actually, for what it's worth, I think I do have the Cuban radar. Let's see. I think I have the Cuban radar. I'm gonna have to go back here a little bit, because I'm gonna find the Cuban radar and I'm gonna show that. So I'm just gonna scroll all the way down here. Somewhere down in this vicinity. There it is. Now, Andy Hazelton brought me to this, Guantanamo Bay. And here it is. So you notice that we have a fairly deep area of convection, and the low-level center of circulation is right here. That's where it is right there on the radar site. That's where it is moving off towards the west-northwest. And you can clearly see, but that might be a mesovortex. I don't know if that's the real low-level center. So that might be a mesovortex, but this was really trying to become the dominant center. Almost doing like what it did in Puerto Rico for what it's worth there. So that's interesting. Why does Laura already look like a hurricane? Because you know, it's really only about 15 miles an hour away right now from becoming a hurricane. 60 mile an hour winds as of the 8 o'clock intermittent advisory. And it's been getting better organized throughout the day despite it being over land. And that's kind of one of the concerning factors going forward with Laura. I find it amazing that hurricanes never bore me. Yeah, I mean, hurricanes never do bore me. You know, I can literally talk about this all day. You know, except my voice can't, but, you know, my mind and brain can. My voice is starting to get really tired out. Excuse me. Depends on Marcus Center, might be about 1,001. Oof. That would be a sign that Marcus is starting to really weaken. And I don't know. Yeah, here's the satellite. I'm actually going to switch this over to the IR so we have a better look at what's going on here. So it's going to kind of do some buffering and loading, and it might take a little bit because internet right now does not want to seem to be my friend at the moment. So if you were supposed to make a prediction, how strong do you think Laura could be? It's hard to say, but I certainly think it will at least be a Category 2. At least a Category 2, probably higher. if I had to make a prediction. An eye wall replacement cycle, well, the fact that we don't have an eye wall, unless if you're talking about Marco, but if you're talking about Laura, we don't have an eye wall with Laura, so it is kind of hard to actually get an eye wall replacement cycle. But if you're talking about exclusively with Marco, it is possible, because we do have a pretty deep convective burst that's occurring near the center for what it's worth. That's pretty deep. Also, that's further north, too. Once this fully loads, I know I'm kind of sorry for the buffering, but my internet isn't really the best in the world right now, especially with streaming. And it's 8:45, so basically everyone else is on the internet right now, so 350 miles away from each other, yeah. Probably not a Fujiwara effect, but they are pretty close to one another, which is interesting. But you notice in the frames that you can see, and all the frames here will be loaded in a second. Here we go. They'll be loaded in hopefully a second. Not quite yet. There we go. Okay, so you notice what's going on here after that short delay. Yeah, that's interesting. First of all, deep convection off towards the north and east. Second of all, further north. This is kind of a little bit intriguing. Now, that might be the mid-level center location. Oh, come on. I hate when it does this. That might be the mid-level center location in there. It's kind of hard to tell, to be completely honest, but that might be the low-level center in this general vicinity. So it's a little bit hard to kind of actually say. But that'll be one thing we really have to watch for. That it is further towards the north, at least here. And for what it's worth, I'm going to look here to see if we can get any recon data pulled up here from Marco, because this will give us a better understanding of what's going on with the internal structure here of Marco. Let's see if that is going to load for me. Maybe it won't, and maybe I just have too many tabs open, but this is a rather interesting little thing happening, because you notice how far this is towards the north. Now, it is possible that the low-level center of circulation could start to becoming decoupled, but this burst of convection is almost pulling due north, and that's very interesting. Now, there isn't much storms near, well, I take that back. So you see this area of deep convection right here. This is unrelated to Marco. There's a lot of deep convection up near Tallahassee right now. But you see all this deep convection that's working its way through Okeechobee right now, Vero Beach and Palm Bay, south of Brevard County, moving up into Osceola. This has some lightning with it, and in fact, this might actually be able to impact where I'm at here in Metro Orlando. Interesting. But fairly significant storm blow up down here, and there's more that's kind of coming off here. But Florida's going to have some rainfall, that's for sure. And real quick, if we put that on, these are some gusty winds. That's about 42 miles an hour. So that's very interesting. So that will be something we'll really have to watch, but it is curious that Marco might be a tad bit towards the north. After Marco and Laura, we have more waves. Yeah, we have more waves. Marco is weakened to a 70-mile-per-hour tropical storm on the ATCF. Well, it would really be curious if Recon, well, that's probably why. Recon found 1,001 millibars on the south side, and notice how there's almost nothing here. Yeah. It wouldn't be surprising and shocking in the very least to say that the low-level and mid-level centers are starting to become decoupled now at this point in time. So, but that's interesting. All right, so brand new 0Z model runs just came out here on Laura. And again, this now basically shows an upward trending tick here, 50 knots on the ATCF. We're at 60 miles per hour. All of them forecast this to become a hurricane over the next few days. And in terms of the track guidance on the 0Z model runs, they have actually shifted a tad bit back towards the west, or back towards the east, with this latest run. Just a tad bit east. They're kind of following closely with the official Hurricane Center forecast. The H-Wharf seems to be on the furthest east or the furthest west solution. And for some reason, the CMC seems to be on the furthest east solution. But that's not going to happen. So, brand new, basically shifted further east. And for what it's worth, real quickly here, I'm going to look here at Marco's guidance real quick as well. And see what's kind of cooking with Marco. That is a tropical storm. The ATCF. So yeah. So still expecting that bend. This will be interesting if it does a full recurve. But still expecting that bend because of the fact that this low-level center is now going to start to decouple. It's going to go further west, and it's going to feel the ridge a little bit more in that northwestern flow, and it's going to crank it further west. So that basically what the models have shown, and for the intensity, they continue to show a pretty significant decline. And it looks like that, besides the H-Wharf, I don't know why the H-Wharf is doing what it does, but besides the H-Wharf, every single model decline, and does not look like that this will kind of rebound to be anything significant. So looks like now this will be on a weakening trend as we kind of progress through time. Yeah, the H-Wharf solution is certainly very weird, and I don't think it's going to verify. If the low-level center for Laura reforms further south, will go more west, yes. It will go more west. So I'm going to start wrapping things up now. So if you guys have any final questions, go ahead and ask. I'm going to start to kind of wrap things up because we are kind of getting fairly far into our video discussion for this evening. I thought I would do something a little bit different than basically than the regular videos. But these live streams seem to be pretty good, and I might actually do one tomorrow morning too. So, Rubio and Ingram. Horf weird on Marco, but Laura is possible. Yeah, Laura certainly seems like a lot more of a potential candidate to rapidly intensify once it reaches the Gulf of Mexico. So. Yeah, my voice is definitely starting to get kind of cut off, so it's starting to be degraded, and I can start to feel it in my throat too, that it's starting to get sore. Marco has it one day, glory now dead. Yeah, less than a day, really. Became a hurricane today, week into a tropical storm today. So that's what these storms will do. They'll pull fast ones on you, and then they'll look promising one moment, and then they'll look completely dead the next moment. What if Marco takes the blue spaghetti model path? So I think you would be referencing to the UK Met model, which is this blue one right here. That's the UK. It would have a chance to sit around here, but with the fact that Laura is coming in here. Laura might the outflow from Laura might actually cause shear downstream and not allow for anything to occur. That would be my guess. So that would kind of be what I'm kind of thinking with that. So have some honey and tea. I actually have never tried those combinations, but I certainly might actually after I kind of wrap things up here. Thanks for the live stream. I've been watching since around April, and it's nice talking to you and sharing some insightful thoughts. Yeah, certainly. And, part of the reason why, part of the reason why I do this is to educate people. I find that, sometimes video discussions alone don't get my message across. And I've had some people that have been confused on what message I'm really trying to get across. And I try to really emphasize this, and I think these live streams are great. They're great tools to be able to help people understand everything. They can ask questions, and I can interact in real time. And that's why I really like these live streams, and YouTube it makes it easy. And, it definitely makes it easy and makes it a lot better experience for everyone, in my personal opinion. So, but no problem for the live stream. I've greatly enjoyed it. And, it's certainly been something that I'm having fun kind of interacting with everyone. So, but if anyone has any more final questions, I will kind of take those now. And I'll probably wait about 3 minutes for questions to come in, and then I will go ahead and end it for this evening. And I will probably try to get one in tomorrow afternoon before I have to go off to work and school. So I'll try to get both of those in. So thanks for the live stream. The next 4 to 5 days will be interesting. Been watching since May. Hope your channel gets growing. Thank you very much, man. And that really really hits home, to help me kind of keep striving and everything. Is there any new tropical waves? Yes, there is, coming off of Africa. The current EPS ensembles do suggest a general uptick in tropical cyclone activity in the Atlantic Basin over the next 1 to 2 weeks. And then this will be our next system that we got to watch over here. So yes, there is. 2 hours. Jeez, I didn't even realize I was rambling for 2 hours. Another eastward shift overnight for Laura? Probably not. You never say never. But probably not going to have another eastward shift in the model guidance tonight for Laura. The 18Z Euro did show an eastward shift, and it did show it not even strengthening into a hurricane, but that's the 18Z Euro, and I don't believe it for more than 2 seconds. But if more and more models start to come into play with that solution, then I'll start to kind of take that into consideration. I'm glad I accidentally clicked on your video instead of Mark Sudduth's back in mid-June. Love watching both of you guys in the daily updates. Thank you, And look, I've gotten some people, because I'm doing a similar project with the hurricane cameras like Mark Sudduth is. I'll bring that up real quickly. So if you guys aren't familiar with what I'm doing, I'm basically doing, a hurricane camera project much like Mark Sudduth is, but I'm also trying to help him out as well. So let's see here. I do not want to filter. Let's see if I can. I don't know if I can search for it or not. I might not be able to. Let's see. I might be able to, but then again, I may not be able to. Actually, I know where it is. It's my playlist. Duh. Also, I do have some educational resources and educational videos out here on my playlist. If you guys do want to go check out those, that is something that is certainly there. This is the hurricane camera project. I'm just going to shut the audio off. But this is much in the same thing that, like, with what we're doing, that like Mark Sudduth is doing. And I've gotten some people say, oh, won't amount to much or whatever, and you're copying. But in my personal opinion, I am trying to help him as well. So, but this, and I kind of link it in the video, my hurricane outlook and discussions. And that if you guys do go want to take a look at this, make sure you guys do, because this is what we're doing with our hurricane camera projects, and we'll be continuing to do that throughout the next several years, hopefully. The storm, insanely, yeah, that was Patricia in 2015 in the El Nino year. That was crazy. But Typhoon Tip was the strongest in 79, yeah. So, but any more questions for me? If not, I'm going to go ahead and jump off for the night, and then I will be probably back tomorrow morning early, very early in the morning. So if any of you happen to be kind of up around, maybe around about 7 in the morning, I'll probably be doing another live at that point in time, but we'll see. Any updates on Laura? Really not much. We're really going to have to be seeing how this interacts tonight with Cuba, and you know, seeing if we get another center reformation that occurs further south. So that's going to be the main thing there. So we'll kind of be watching everything. It'd be the worst if Laura does a copy and paste. Yeah, if it does, literally, if it copies Patricia. You know, I'm not going to speculate, but, I mean, fortunately, I don't think it will. But as Dorian taught me last year, you don't say never, ever, in the tropics. Because I said that last year with Dorian, and I learned my lesson pretty quick. So that is definitely that. Just kind of looking for any more quick updates that I can kind of give you guys. So not really seeing anything significant that I kind of need to upgrade or kind of talk about. So I'm not so sure that how accurate is the GFS? Okay, good question. So the GFS on Tropical Tidbits on any website is the GFS, the same GFS distributed from the NCEP centers back in Washington D.C. That's where the NCEP center is. So the GFS, it can be, no one model is 100% accurate, but for what it's worth, the GFS is pretty good. But we have started to see that the GFS and the Euro have not played very well this year, and that's probably because of what's going on with the lack of aircraft data because of the pandemic. Right now. These hurricanes are definitely getting stronger every year. Do y'all think to add a Category 6 hurricane, and to be quite frank, this is almost the same argument that can be made for a EF6 tornado. Once you start getting up above a certain threshold of damage, it just really doesn't matter. You know, like an EF6 tornado, you want to be able to tell, because it would be the same damage as a high-end EF5. You know what I'm saying? So the chances of that happening are unlikely, unless if they do a significant revision with the Saffir-Simpson scale. And there has been talk about revising it in a way that it conveys the impacts more based on wind and based on rain and storm surge and all of that. Because right now the Saffir-Simpson scale is only based on wind, and that's very misleading, because only Category 1, with what we saw with Florence, can dump a tremendous amount of rainfall if it just sits over an area. I'm in New Orleans, and it's raining hard by me. I'm assuming that's what you meant, raining. Yeah, you know, that area is going to get pounded with some heavy rainfall over the next few days, so it's going to be something to monitor. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and end the stream for tonight. I will be back very early tomorrow morning, because it's past 9 o'clock now, And, I'll be doing updates on Twitter for the rest of the evening. So if you guys do want to go follow me, links will be, I will post kind of the link in the description down below. And also, it is here at Mike O'Malley1. That is where you all can find me. All right? Have a good night. Good luck. First day of college. Stay vigilant about the reformation. Certainly will. And thank you very much. And very, very thankful that you kind of, are very nice and friendly. Hurricane Florence, yeah, that was a big storm. Excuse me. Category 6, in my opinion, yeah, it just wouldn't be very doable. And, I'll just kind of go on this tangent, real quickly, and then I'll kind of sign off for the night. A Category 6 doesn't really make much of a difference between, the damage that it's going to cause. Sure, a higher wind speed is going to cause higher damage, okay? But in my personal opinion, and by scientific research, more people die every single year in hurricanes from storm surge than they do wind. And in my opinion, we in the weather community, weather enthusiasts, actual meteorologists, etc., and people at the Hurricane Center, we all need to come together and have a roundtable discussion and communicate the threats of storm surge and rainfall threats a lot better than what we do. And that is no bash on the National Hurricane Center, because they're the experts, they do amazing. But we all need to have a roundtable discussion and stop focusing on whether or not this is a tropical depression or storm or Category 1 or 5. Because as we saw with a non-tropical low in 2016, it dumped a ton of rainfall over Louisiana, caused a big problem with flooding, and there you go, and it wasn't even a tropical cyclone. So that's kind of my tangent for this evening, but we in the weather enterprise need to kind of come together and be able to kind of adequately adjust to the changing times. And also we need to do something about the cone. Because in my opinion, a lot of people focus on that little cone, and if they aren't in that cone of uncertainty or that small narrow cone in the 2 to 3 day window, they forget about it. And impacts occur well outside of the cone of uncertainty. Dorian passed, well to the east of Orlando, but it still brought tropical storm force gusts and some flooding to, Metro Orlando. So, for what it's worth, that's just kind of that. So, with that being said, I hope you all have a great rest of your evening, and thank you all for joining this live stream. I do appreciate each and every one of you, because your support to this channel really makes me incredibly happy, and it just kind of keeps me going, you know what I'm saying? And if you guys do want to go follow me on Twitter, I'll be updating there throughout the evening for that. All right? That being said, have a good rest of your afternoon afternoon. What am I saying? Have a good rest of your evening, and I will talk to you guys again some more tomorrow, probably very early. Good night, everyone, and thank you for